How did you come to join Enfield Football Club?
Well, I got a phone call from Roy Thomas, actually. I was playing for Hendon at the time, and Roy said some of the guys that I'd played with before were starting out at Enfield, and thought it would be a good idea. And that was the initial thing for me. And then I came to Enfield and joined the club.
What was the motivation for so many to leave Hendon in one go? I think it was just for myself. You know, it was, I suppose, basically, a bit nearer home, I suppose, and just a change as good as the rest, I suppose. Was there any financial consideration?
Not really, no. No, I never made anything. I mean, basically, I think I was one of the few that didn't. I got my expenses for travelling, and that's about it. There were the odd occasions where we played in a cup game. The incentive was slightly higher,
but generally you played for the love of the game.
Yeah.
When you were with Hendon and you played Enfield before you arrived, what was your impression of Enfield as a club?
Well, at that particular time, I think Hendon were the better team. Enfield were sort of, I won't say they were bad, but they're classed as possibly not such a good team. You know, in match-wise.
Okay. Malcolm, how did you come to join Enfield?
I come late into senior football. I was actually playing down at Weir because my brother had just retired, and he says, "Do you want to go down and have a trial?" I played a season down there, and George Ludford, who was the manager of Enfield then, because I used the football club a lot socially, because I'm a Enfield boy, and he said, would I come to play reserve team football? He said, I can't promise you a first team game. And all I said to him, I said, well, if the first team goalkeeper can't play, I want to play. I don't want you running around the corner and getting someone else from another club. And that's how I said I'll come and play. But I only come as a reserve team player.
Being a local lad, had Enfield featured much in your life up until then?
No, so you know, I'd play for Enfield schoolboys and a local junior side, and we played kind of cup finals and stuff on Enfield Stadium. You know, that was all. But I did, as I say, I was actually a swimmer really, and we used the football club as virtually the headquarters of the swimming club as well. I say I had 2 good seasons at Enfield, and of course I ended up having an accident where I never got back to the standard I was. I carried on playing reserve team football at Enfield, and Tommy Lawrence took over as manager, and one day one of our ex-players was playing down at Edmonton. They didn't have a goalkeeper. I spoke to Tommy and he said, well, I didn't figure in his setup. I said, well, can I go and play? He said, yeah, and I went on there and I went and played then down at Edmonton, or whatever they were called then.
Okay. What was it like playing in the big local derbies against Barnet and Hendon?
My first game was against Barnet in the first team, and it was unbelievable. You know, I couldn't believe, you know, coming from mainly from junior football, that you can get that excited. Well, don't say scared. It's just excitement, and it was exactly the same with the cup final. Actually, it wasn't scary. It was just so exciting to be there.
Pete, what are your memories of the local derbies?
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, we had our own personal battles. I think one of mine, the Barnet one, was Reggie Finch. We had a mutual hatred of each other. I think he was a good player. We used to and it wasn't in the days where you tackled anybody and they rolled about 14 times. If he actually went on the floor, which he very rarely did, he'd get up straight away. They were quite busy games because the crowds in those days, I would say possibly the Barnet Enfield ones, because we used to play Barnet over Christmas, and the crowds were sort of in the thousands. I think Christmas Day and Boxing Day we used to play. We probably get 6 or 7 or more thousand people watching the games at Barnet and at Enfield. And it's similar to Hendon as well, I suppose. They were sort of derbies to a certain extent, but not so much as the Barnet Enfield games, and it was similar to Hendon Enfield. Barnet and Enfield was like swap around. I think Alf Darcy, Tommy, Bobby Cantwell, they all played for Barnet at some stage. I didn't play for Barnet, but
did the fact that so many of you played for the other team increase the atmosphere and the tension?
Yeah, it probably did. Yeah. I would say it probably had a bit to do with it anyway. Yeah.
The team that played in the Athenian League were the first really successful side that Enfield had had. What do you think made it so successful?
Well, I'm trying to think who the manager was at that time. I think it was probably George Ludford was around your time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's an ex-professional, so I would probably the organisation and I think a lot of it, Enfield's success, in my opinion, being that type of individual, was our fitness. I think we were noted as, I think, possibly the fittest side in the league. We had a guy who was the Olympic weightlifting coach, Ron Taylor, who when we finished normal training at Enfield, the football and five-a-sides and circuit training, we'd go into what was the bar, but that part of that was the where we used to have our food afterward, and he'd set up a weight training circuit. So we were quite a professional outfit, if you like. That's what I think, anyway.
Malcolm, what was your routine on a match day?
I never had a kind of set routine as such. Being as I was local, I walked to the ground in 10 minutes. So I never actually, as I said, I'm when they find something to do in the morning, just part of the time way, not trying to think about the game, especially if it was a biggish game. And I shouldn't say this, I suppose, had quite a big lunch before I played. I was never the fittest kind of person. I'd never make today's kind of fitness levels.
No special diets in your day?
No. I'm afraid not. I kept, not to keep on about it, but I kept from my swimming day the same kind of routine virtually, and as I said, it was quite late for me to come into senior football. I'd always played just junior football.
I was always pretty careful what I ate, I must admit. I wouldn't have a lot. I'd probably have cheese on toast or something very light before a game. In those days, I think most clubs that I can remember sat down to a meal after the game. I can't remember any of the clubs that we went to that didn't. You know, I mean, I can't even remember when it stopped happening.
That was the Athenian. I think that was
probably
a rule in the Athenian
possibly,
league,
yeah.
that you gave a visiting team a meal after the game.
Yeah.
But I think it stopped when in the Isthmian League you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And that when it all kind of come to a stop, I think.
Yeah, I think I was probably more conscious of, and I still am today. Funny enough, I try and keep my, keep my weight down, because as you get older, obviously you don't do so much exercise. Although I do exercise, but it's sort of sitting still, doing exercise. If you could, I won't go through it, but you do. If you're that way, I was that way all my life. As a, even in the police force, I was the same. Keeping myself fit. And one of my pet hates is seeing a policeman with a big fat belly. That's the old Mr. Plod that you used to see years ago, and I think that's me.
So these post-match meals, you'd be kicking somebody for 90 minutes, and then you sit down and have a meal with them afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. Put your arm around him and etc. Yeah. Putting it that way. Yeah. I suppose so. Yeah.
Enfield moved up to the Isthmian League in 1963. Was it a big jump in standard?
No, I don't think so. Not terrifically. Not for Enfield. Anything. I think Enfield could have, in those days, could have, in my opinion, played in quite a higher standard. Like they had the Southern League in those days, and I think we were as good as any, which was a semi-pro league in them days. I think we were as good as any of them. I don't know. That's how I feel about it myself. Yeah.
Well, I think, as people were saying, the setup at Enfield was so good. We had the best kind of back room. We had a top physio in Eddie Franklin.
Eddie Franklin, yeah.
Who all the pros in kind of North London come to as well. And
yeah, he ended up at Chelsea, didn't he?
Yeah, but if you get an injury, if Eddie said you couldn't play, then you knew you couldn't play. If he said you can play, you went out and played. It was as easy as that. Everyone just trusted him. If he said you can play on that, then you played, whether it was falling off or whatever. If he said you could play, you could play.